Pool B is a very interesting pool, isn't it, this year at the Rugby World Cup? And today we had this mighty clash between Tonga, a group of islands in the South Pacific that is around about 171 islands make up the nation of Tonga, against the formidable force in South Africa. And this game was played in Marseille today. And this video is a review of that game. Hello and welcome to Inside Rugby. If you haven't been here before, my name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan living in beautiful Cancun in Mexico. And in this video I'm going to be talking about that mighty clash today between South Africa and Tonga. It was just finished a few minutes ago, and boy, what a bone-rattling game that was, that's for sure. And there's been some really fantastic games, hasn't there, in this Rugby World Cup, and this was another one, that's for sure. Now in this video I'm going to review this game in 15-minute segments, and the reason I'm going to do that is I just want to highlight the ebbs and flows that happen in these amazing Rugby World Cup games. And for the first half we've got obviously two 15-minute segments and then a 10-minute segment as we head into half time. So we'll just see what happens in each of those 15-minute periods and give you an idea on what team has the ascendancy. So let's have a look at this game. And first of all, the last time these two teams met were many years ago in 2007, and on that occasion the Springboks just beat Tonga by 5 points. So in the first 15 minutes of this game it was a real battle, and both teams came out with a full intention to take it on, playing at pace and playing up with big heavy hits, and we saw that from both teams. And it was in the first few minutes that Tonga got a penalty inside the South African 23, and they decided to take the kick for goal, and William Havili, their number 10 in the game, got up and kicked the ball over. And Havili's been kicking pretty well up until this game against South Africa today, so there's no surprise that he started off putting Tonga in front by 3-0. But it wasn't much in it in this game in the beginning, because there was a huge amount of defence going on from South Africa. They were very good on defence, and Tonga were throwing everything at them early on. And when I say throw everything at them, it was the pace of the game that was very interesting, because South Africa really wanted to play this game at a high pace. And when they got down into the Tongan territory, they were awarded a penalty, and Cobus Reinach, the halfback for South Africa, took a quick tap. He caught the Tongan defence napping and went over for a very simple try. And I'm sure Totu Kefu, the head coach of Tonga, would have been very upset with the Tongan players that early in the game falling off their defence and not being aware. But a very good move by Cobus Reinach, putting South Africa into the lead with that good try. Now, one of the many very interesting facets of this game was going to be Andre Pollard's kicking. He got up for the first conversion attempt in this game and he got it over, so he started off with a 100% record of kicking his conversion. It's good to see Pollard back in the game, and also just seeing how his distribution was too on the back of Reinach. He was bulleting passes out to Andre Esterhuizen in the centres for him to run onto, and doing a couple of cutout balls too in that first 15 minutes of the game. Really well played by Pollard, I thought, and he got South Africa going forward on the front foot. But Tonga were playing their part in this game, and they had a lot of opportunities in that first 15 minutes and pushing towards the South African line, putting a lot of pressure on South Africa. But the South African defence was absolutely brutal and fantastic in that first 15 minutes. At the back end of that first 15 minutes, the Tongans were down on attack again. They had an opportunity from a line out. They got into a rolling maul situation, but then South Africa got a penalty and they were able to clear it. So we got to the end of the first 15 minutes of the game. South Africa were ahead 7 points to 3 on the back of that try by Cobus Reinach. And by that stage the South Africans were just starting to get themselves into the game, and I felt as though Tonga had the first part of this game in terms of momentum. They were putting the Springboks under a lot of pressure. In fact, in that first 15 minutes the Springboks had to make 49 tackles. That's right, 49 tackles. So they were using up a lot of energy, and it was going to be interesting to see whether that became a telling factor in this game as it wore on. So we headed into the next 15 minutes of the game, and I thought Tonga really had some good momentum going in this game. And it was around about the 19th minute mark, and there was a bit of an opportunistic play for South Africa where the ball bounced off a shoulder. It came up to Moody, and he went through the Tongan back line like they were standing still, and got a try under the post. A little bit unfortunate, I felt, for Tonga, but at the end of the day, they have to take your chances, and when something like that happens in this game, someone like Canan Moody, who was there on the spot ready to pounce, first of all he had to handle the ball well, which he did, and he had to beat the last two players in the Tongan defence line, which he did as well. So it was a good try from South Africa in the end. A little bit opportunistic for Moody, but they took that opportunity and turned it into points. So all of a sudden we had South Africa out to 14-3, and it kind of felt like Tonga were more in the game than that scoreline represented. South African forwards were doing well, but I thought the Tongans were doing very well. Their lineouts were good. They were winning ball off the lineouts, and there was a bit of disruption going on both sides in terms of the lineouts, and as a result of that we did see a couple of penalties. But we got to the 30th minute mark in the game, and I think South Africa won that second 15 minutes of that first half by just scoring that opportunistic try, keeping the scoreboard ticking over and staying ahead by 14 points to 3. So despite Tonga having a number of opportunities and going deep on into attack in the South African 22, they weren't able to convert those particular opportunities into points. So you've got to give South Africa the credit for keeping Tonga out and also keeping their own scoreboard ticking over. Now let's have a look at that 10-minute period before half time, and it was basically even, I thought, because both teams scored a try in that period of play. And first of all, the first one went to South Africa. Dion Fourie did a well-timed line out more with the rest of his forwards, got to the line and went over, and I thought Fourie was playing very, very well up until this stage, and I think he started to click into that hooker position for the Springboks, and I know they've been spending a lot of time doing set pieces with Fourie in that position to get him up to speed, and of course he's been replacing Malcolm Marx since Marx has been out of the tournament injured. So that was a really good passage of play. It gave the Springboks another try. So 19 points to 3, and Pollard had another conversion attempt, which he got over and kept his 100% scoring record in this game going. And before he started this game, Pollard had scored 162 points for South Africa in rugby internationals in his career, which I think is the 4th most of any Springbok. So a fantastic effort there from Pollard, and he was doing exactly what the Springboks wanted him to do coming into this team, making sure that they kept the scoreboard ticking over with all of their kicks for goal. However, Tonga weren't lying down, and they responded in that last 10 minutes in front of the South African post. They put on a lot of forward emphasis and got close to the line a number of times, a lot of phases of play through the Tongan forwards, and finally they were rewarded with that big man, that 151 kilo Ben Tamuwhenua, the captain of the Tongan team, went over to the delight of the crowd in the Marseille stadium today, and Tonga scored a fantastic try just a couple of minutes before half time. Now that try for Tonga came on the back of a good line-out win again. They went into a good mauling situation, got close to the South African line, punched it up a number of times, pick and rolls, and then finally Ben Tamuwhenua went over for that good try, and that really got the Tongan tails up as they went into half-time. Unfortunately, William Havili was not able to get the conversion over, which would have made a little bit of a difference, I think, to the psychology of the Tongans when they went into the half-time. But I think they would have been pretty proud, even though the scoreboard was against them at half-time. I think one of the things that Kefu wanted from this Tongan team was for them to go out and compete with South Africa, and that's definitely what they did do in that first half of rugby. But you've got to take your hat off to the Springboks. Their defence was absolutely huge, and everything that Tonga threw at them except for that try, they were able to repel and clear away from their line, and they did spend a lot of time down near their line and in their 22 in that first half of play. Now I thought we were going to see the Springboks really split open the Tongan backline and get a lot of running ball in this game in the first half, and we didn't see that necessarily. They had some good breaks. Esterhuizen was doing exactly what he was brought into this game to do, and making some really good darts up into the line, setting up second phase play, and the Tongans were finding him a handful, that's for sure. Makazolo Mapimpi went off with HIA and never came back on the field. Jesse Creel replaced him, and Jesse Creel took up the mantle, of course, and played very, very well when he came on the field. So we had Esterhuizen and Creel in there, and we had still Canan Moody operating in the back line as well. So they were alternating those positions from time to time, depending on what was going to go on. But Canan Moody found himself out on the wing later on in the game. So 21-8 at half-time to South Africa. I don't think that was a real true reflection of the game, although South Africa did take their opportunities and score those tries, so you've got to give it to them in that respect. But I think Tonga played very, very well in that first half, and they showed a lot of determination. They were very strong, they were very good in the breakdown, and it was just a couple of occasions where their handling errors let them down, and the Springboks breakdown was exceptional in getting in there and stealing the ball on the opportunities where Tonga may have scored a couple of tries. And looking back at it now, just looking at some of the quick replays of some of those plays, Tonga could have scored another 2 tries in that first half if the South African defence wasn't as good as it was. But it was, and we went to half-time at 21 points to 8. So a few mentions in that first half. Grant Williams on the wing for South Africa had a couple of darts, and exciting to see him running. As I said in my preview video, he's somebody that really excites me, and it was great to see him get ball in hand. And Pollard was doing exactly what South Africa wanted him to do, not only with his kicking percentage, but also in open play. He was making the ball go out there. He's got a good bullet pass to make opportunities for his outside backs. Thought Willie LaRue was doing all right at fullback. He maintained his presence there, kept the defense in a good line. And Andre Esterhuizen was doing some really good charge ups in the middle and starting to soften up those Tongan inside backs. The like of Fikatoa and those guys, Aki for Tonga, were having to make some big tackles on Esterhuizen time after time as he pummeled the line, and that was going to take its toll for sure later on in the game. I had no doubt about it. But I think the Tongan forwards should have been pretty proud with what they did in that first half. Again, despite the scoreboard, I think they really took it to South Africa. They came out very big and strong, and they hung in there and kept their engine going. It's just some of those execution skills that happens because of Tonga's lack of time together as a unit, unfortunately let them down on a couple of occasions. But it was a great match up until half time. Really enjoyed it. And I think South Africa's defence, despite them scoring those tries, I think South Africa's defence was the highlight, because it really, really repelled the Tongan advances on the number of occasions that they got close to the Tongan line. So well done, I think, to the South African defence for that first 40 minutes. Having scored 3 tries in the first half, South Africa just needed one more for that very vital bonus point they were looking for from this game. And it was good that Tonga had scored a try. South Africa hasn't had many tries scored against them up until this stage of the Rugby World Cup. In fact, that game against Ireland was the only try that South Africa has had scored against them up until this game. So it was very, very good by Tonga by being able to get through the South African defensive line eventually in that first half. So at half-time, I think Kefu would have said to the Tongan boys, look, keep it going. I need you to go another 40 minutes, and I need you to be a little bit more accurate with what you're doing, because that was the one thing that was really perhaps letting the Tongans down in this game, was their accuracy. And just every now and again, that missed pass or dropping the ball knock on, it was costing them in their attacking phase. They had a lot of territory going forward, and it was just their execution at times. So I'm sure that Kefu was reminding them of that. The other thing he probably wanted to look for was for them to keep going for the 80 minutes. They'd fallen off against Scotland and Ireland. That was a big part of their failing, I guess, in those particular games. And he wanted to see Tonga go for the full 80 minutes today and really leave it all out there. On the other side of the coin, I think Jacques Nienaber would have been pretty happy with what he saw from the Springboks in the first half, particularly from a defensive point of view. And they say that defense wins you big games. Well, that was really helping South Africa set up those opportunities for those tries that they did score in the first half. They were only 1 try away from the bonus point. So I'm sure that Nienaber would have told the South Africans to go out there and keep doing it, expecting the Tongans to fall off in the second half. So looking at the first 15 minutes of the second half, and it was honours shared in the first 15 minutes of the second half. Both teams scored a try during that period of play, and the first try went to the Springboks, to Jesse Kriel. And it was a really good try from the Springboks, because they had wave after wave of attack and were just breaking the Tongans down. And it was only a matter of time before they finally got through. And when the ball had come out from the forwards and finally came off to the side, Kriel got an opportunity to go over and scored a good try for the Springboks. So that was their 7-pointer in that first 15 minutes of the second half. So after Jesse Kriel scored the try, we saw Pollard hit the conversion over, 28 points to 8 to South Africa at that stage, and that was Pollard's last action in this game, as he was replaced at that stage by Manny Lebok. and it was going to be very interesting to see whether Lote kept up the kicking percentages that Pollard had set in that first half. But a few minutes later in that period of play, at the 55-minute mark, Tonga got a great opportunity to attack. They came down the right hand side, the ball went out right through the back line. It ended up with the Nessie on the right hand wing, and he dove in for a fantastic try to Tonga in the corner, and unfortunately William Havili was unable to get that conversion, and the scoreboard was ticking over just with a try and no conversion for Tonga. So at the end of that first 15 minutes of the second half, we had a score of 28-13, even Stevens as far as 7-all for that 15 minutes. And it was reflected in the play throughout the open area of the ground as well. Both teams had opportunities going backwards and forwards, and it was being played at a heck of a pace. And every time one of the teams got a break, it was a 50 or 60 metre gain down the field, and the forward packs had to trundle on through and get themselves down there. So you could see by the look on the faces of both sides of forwards, they were really taking in the big breaths, because it was a very, very energy sapping period of the game, that's for sure. Now that period of play between the 55th minute and the 70th minute of these games is typically very, very important, and this is where South Africa started to dominate. So we often talk about the last 20 minutes of game, but I think it's always in that middle period of the second half where teams either start to fall off or another team starts to dominate, and that's what we saw here with South Africa. They kept up their level of accuracy and their pace. They used their bench well, bringing on their replacement forwards and their replacement backs, and they were able to keep the pressure on the Tongans. And during that 55-minute to 70-minute period of play, South Africa scored 2 more tries. The first one of those tries was a great backline move that came right out from the right-hand side to the left-hand side of the field. A cutout pass to Willie LaRue on the wing. He went down towards the goal line, stepped inside, and then went over in the tackle of a Tongan to score a really, really good try for South Africa. That put them out to 35 points to 13. So a great try to Willie LaRue, its 90th cap today for the Springboks, and a great effort to score that one in the corner. Lote got the conversion over, then South Africa were out 35 points to 13. So at that stage, South Africa had the 4 tries in the bag and the bonus point on board. So they were looking at points differential and wanting to put as many points on Tonga as possible. Now the interesting point about Tonga was in the last games against Ireland and Scotland, they'd scored 16 and 17 points collectively. So at this stage they were already up to 13 points. So it's going to be interesting to see whether Tonga kicked on in that last 20 minutes or whether South Africa was going to be able to keep them at bay and put on some more points. Well, the answer was Van Staden was about to score a fantastic try right next to the upright for the Springboks after another dominating forward raid that saw their forwards pick and roll, go towards the line, and the Tongan defence finally gave way, and South Africa were over for another fantastic try. The kick was in front for the Bok, so he got the conversion over no problems at all, and we saw South Africa then going out to 42 points to 13. An unassailable lead as far as the game goes, but there's still much to play for in the last 10 minutes. So looking at that 15-minute period between the 55-minute and 70-minute mark, South Africa scored 2 tries and Tonga were unable to put any more points on the board. And then we went into the last 10 minutes and it got really super exciting again, with both teams throwing the ball around, looking for opportunities. And it was Tonga that came away with the next try, a fantastic individual effort by Pellegrini, who'd come on at number 10 for Tonga, went down the left-hand touchline ball and ended up scoring a fantastic try for Tonga. The crowd erupted. Everybody was happy that Tonga had scored 3 tries in this game, and it brought a little bit more respectability back to the scoreboard for Tonga. Pellegrini must have been a little bit tired from scoring the try because he missed his own conversion and wasn't able to add the extras on that occasion. So the Springboks were ahead now by 42 points to 18, just a few minutes left in the game, and you could tell that the Springboks still wanted more in this game. They wanted to work on the points differential, which could be a very, very big thing as we go into the last round of pool matches next. So after that try from Pellegrini, the Tongans got the ball again and they went on attack again. It was that man Pellegrini that threw a great pass out to their winger Inesi, who's been in the play all afternoon. He shot off downfield, went inside, and unfortunately Tonga lost the ball and it was a turnover to South Africa. They came back up the other end of the field pretty quickly thanks to a great Manny Lebok clearing kick, and went straight back onto the attack. And in the last minute of the game, or the last play of the game actually, Quagga Smith went over for a fantastic try right next to the post. I thought he played really well since he came on. Quagga Smith, he was into everything in the breakdown and really getting the ball out quickly. He's a fantastic player, can play in a number of different positions of course, and he had a really big play when he came on. Great try from Quagga Smith, converted by Lebok, 49 points to 18, and that was the final score in this game after we saw 21 points to 8 at half time. So 29 points to 10 in the second half to South Africa, still dominating and taking the game away from Tonga. But I thought this was a really good game, and I think despite the scoreline, Tonga would have been happier with this game than they were against Ireland and Scotland. South Africa were really bringing it to them, opening them up wherever they could, but Tonga were repelling that, and I thought the Tongan forwards went the whole 80 minutes in this game. They didn't fall off very much at all, and they were up for it big time. So a huge kudos, I think, to Tonga despite the scoreline. I think given their background, they come from an island nation of 171 different islands down there. These guys play for 25 different clubs around the world. They don't get much time to come together to play as a unit, and they had little time to prepare for this Rugby World Cup in comparison to the top tier teams. So I think they've done a really fantastic job. And if they spent another couple of months together and played some good competition games, I think we'd see this Tonga team at another level, perhaps something like what we're seeing from Fiji. So well done to everybody associated with this Tongan team on their performance at this Rugby World Cup, and in particular in this game against South Africa today. Plenty of good players, I thought, for Tonga today. Fifita had a good game. Of course, Big Ben, their big captain, was enormous around the field and a great leader that guy is. Inesi on the wing had a really good game. Fikatau, who I talked about in the preview video, probably had one of his better games, particularly from a defensive point of view. I thought he did well. He didn't do too much on attack today. And unfortunately, William Havili had a day off with his boot today, which cost Tonga quite a number of points in this game, but it wouldn't have made a difference. But I don't think Havili would have been that thrilled with his particular game today. So I think a number of the Tongan forwards did well. Adam Coleman, who's played for Australia, came on as a substitute in this game for Tonga. He played well in the time that he was on the field as well, getting more line out ball for Tonga. And as I say, overall I think the Tongan pack should be fairly happy with what they did today. On the South African side, well, there was a lot of standouts for me. I thought Cobus Reinach did some good things. He also did a couple of silly things, but overall I think he did the job in terms of keeping the pace of the game going, getting the ball out to his backs. Andre Pollard definitely did what was required of him from starting today and getting those minutes in on the field, which was really important. Andre Esterhuizen was big in the centres, massive game from him. And Moody, when he did get the opportunities, looked very dangerous, and of course he scored that really good try as well. Grant Williams didn't get too many opportunities today, but when he did, he bet his man, got some speed on, looked dangerous. And for me, they've just got to give Grant Williams some more ball, and he'll do the job. Willie Leroux, constant, standard Willie Leroux at the back for the Springboks today, and of course he scored that great try of his own, and playing in his 90th cap today, so a big game for Willie Leroux. The forwards for the Springboks, Dion Fourie had a good game. I thought he's getting better and better as he gets more opportunities in that hooker position. I think the South African front row had a little bit of a hard time at times, and you could see when the Tongans won a penalty in the scrum, they were absolutely delighted that they'd put one over the Springboks. Etzebeth was big, winning some good ball, did one infraction I think in the game that wasn't too smart and was probably lucky to stay on the field. And Sia Kalisi, while he was on, played pretty well as well. So the Springboks all around, very good performance. They did the job. They got the four tries and the bonus point for this game, and that's what they would have really wanted to be out there doing. So it was a really enjoyable game of rugby, an intense game, a big hard-hitting game, an energy-sapping game, a game of big defences from both teams, but also some awesome skill sets from both teams. and I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed this game. Let me know what you think, whether you're a South African fan or a Tongan fan or a neutral rugby fan from around the world. Love to hear from you and what your thoughts are around this win today from South Africa in this pool. Now this sets us up very nicely for that huge game next weekend between Scotland and Ireland. I'll let all the mathematicians put in the comments what has to happen now in terms of the different connotations that might happen next weekend, but whatever it has to be, Scotland need to beat Ireland, and they need to do it comprehensively, I think, for them to have any chance to go through. Okay, so that's it for this particular video. Don't forget to stick around. There's going to be some really exciting rugby next weekend. I'm going to be making videos leading up to the weekend, and of course previewing and reviewing the matches from next week as well. Let me know what you think about the rugby this weekend. Was there a particular team that stood out for you, or a particular player from any of the teams? I'd like to hear your comments on that. Okay, I'm going to be back again soon with some more videos as we go through this Rugby World Cup. Until then, stay well, stay healthy, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye for now.